LinkedIn Live interview series. My name is Nate Cross. I'm the digital content specialist here at Troy. I hope you're doing well from wherever you're watching this from. These LinkedIn Live interviews are a brand new series that Troy has launched this month. The mission is to talk with as many movers and shakers here at Troy as we can, from product managers to department directors to sales managers to vice presidents, to give our audience a better understanding of the exciting things we're doing in the world of document security and just our company initiatives. If you missed our first interview, we talked all about marketing with the director of marketing himself, Eric Howard. We have it posted right in our LinkedIn feed. You can also find it on Troy's YouTube channel. But today I'm very excited because I'm talking with our fantastic business analyst manager and fellow bald person, Bryce deCastro, all the way in Phoenix, Arizona. Bryce, how are you doing, sir?
Wonderful. Thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate you including me. I love it.
Sure thing. Let me get you right up front and center there. Um,
Nice to see everyone.
yeah, but before we get into questions, Bryce, you mind telling us a little bit about your background and kind of what it means to be a business analyst manager here at Troy?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So most of my professional background would be both in the print, mailing, and solution space. Being in this world as long as I have, it's kind of interesting. When I first got into it, it was all about hardware and kind of easy, straightforward sales. And as more time has progressed, people really are looking for more solution focus and really, looking past just a simple box solution and really how we're helping them and their clients and how they communicate with their customers and that communication piece. So there's a lot of security that's involved with that as well to protect the clients and their clients. But that's really kind of where my background stems from, and mostly around communications and how we communicate with our clients and how we support you there.
Right on. So, as a business analyst manager here at Troy, I mean, what industries and kind of companies are you most commonly working with day to day, week to week?
Yeah, well, there's definitely some trends, right? I mean, a lot of the customers I work with are in the government space. As well, obviously being with Troy, we deal with a lot of banking clients as well. But really, it ranges. I mean, really, nowadays the demand from customers to have security measures in place behind their documents that they're receiving, whether that's electronic or physical. Really everything from your mom and pop shop needs to kind of adhere to the same level of security. So we really see a range of customers that we support, and it's kind of nice, being on the Troy side. We really can support the entire spectrum. So anything from your local mom and pop to the enterprise level, folks as well. So security nowadays, I think, is more paramount than ever. In a world where everybody works remote, and there's so many of these pieces that have to be in place to protect everybody. So it's kind of nice. We get kind of a wide array of individuals.
Right, just businesses large and small. Um,
Yeah.
speaking of that, you were saying, how we're kind of in an interesting time in terms of security and working from home. And you would kind of be sort of the expert on this. I mean, what are some emerging threats or risks in document and financial security that you believe organizations should be particularly aware of at this point? Is there certain trends you're seeing?
Yeah, for the longest time, everyone would think, well, we'll push to digital. But what we've actually seen is a lot of the digital moving back to physical print because of the massive amount of risk when it comes to the electronic means. We've seen a lot of customers going back to physical hard copy printed media regardless of what that is, whether that's financial information or, any type of communication really. So, it's tough. The criminals are always looking for ways to adapt and to get our information. And that could be in transit, that could be electronically. And so it's more and more critical to really make sure you're securing each of those pieces. But we have seen a lot more of our customers kind of going back to what would have been thought to be a legacy form of moving back into the print area, as the electronic means have had more inherent risk for sure.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that. That's really interesting. That customers would kind of go backward like that. What kind of I don't know if you can elaborate. Like what kind of risks are happening with electronic transfer? Is it just general fraud, or is there trends in that as well?
Well, unfortunately, there's so many companies that are being hacked nowadays, and there's so many different breaches where our information's getting out there that you start to naturally kind of keep your cards close to the vest, because when you hear companies even such as like large Fortune 500 companies that are being hacked, and the information's getting away from these large companies, from a consumer standpoint, people are naturally like, I want something that's tangible, that I can hold on to, that I can have a little bit more trust in. And so I think that's a big part of it, and it's not just in the US. We have people that are trying to hack our organizations from across the globe. So there's a lot of threats that are out there, and sometimes you kind of have to rethink things to get a little bit more secure. So um, it's kind of a scary time.
Yeah,
But
no, all the research I do, as a content specialist here at Troy, I mean, I see it in every
yeah,
article I write. I mean, like checks are big, and there's pretty much risk in every type of transaction you do. What if it's electronic or by check, whatever it is, there's going to be risk. How,
yeah.
how do you stay up to date on these trends? Is it just talking to people, or are you doing research every day?
Yeah, so I think, from an organizational standpoint, Troy has done an amazing job of really trying to keep a finger on the pulse of the market and what people see today. Troy is pretty much at any trade show that you'll ever see. We're very involved with our customers. Yes, a lot of the world that we live in is virtual, but we're also visiting our clients as well and getting feedback. And it's great feedback for everybody, because, really it's allowing us to kind of stay ahead of the curve as far as what customers need. But um, we're very involved with our customers. We're very involved with market trends and what's going on in the market today. We've got a really skilled team of individuals that work with all the key players in that space. So, and it's not just print. It is on the electronic side. There's a lot of electronic security that's involved as well. So, um, odds are, if you're at a trade show, an event, you'll see Troy there, and that's because we're really um, keeping an ear to the ground to see what's going on in the market today.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and that kind of brings me to my next question. I mean, Troy, we specialize in a lot of things. We specialize in document security, but also particularly in the realm of check security, and
Mhm.
protecting checks from fraud. And one of the biggest things in that space and in those questions usually is about microtoner, which we have our own patented microtoner that releases a red dye whenever any sort of chemical alteration is attempted. Um, but the thing is not many people know even what they might not even know what microtoner is. So
Mhm.
from you going to trade shows and talking to people and hearing questions, what do you think the most common misconception or question you get about microtoner?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would say, what is it? I mean, a lot of customers don't really understand microtoner, and it's such a niche thing. Most of your regular copier suppliers, it's not their main focus, and they don't spend a lot of R&D, if any, in that space. And for us, it is our focus. I mean, it's a huge part of what we do, and it's a huge part of what we focus on with testing labs in Wheeling, West Virginia, with very talented individuals that are testing MICR on a regular basis. But you need MICR. It's very important, because at the end of the day, that's what the bank reads, right? I mean, it's called MICR because of that magnetic characteristic, and you need something that's got a good readability rate. Because at the end of the day, what really matters to you is you don't want the bank rejecting your checks, which means they've got to be able to read them. And you don't want to get hit with fees, and they will hit you with fees. Now, does a bank check every check? Probably not. Every bank's different, but when they read the check, you want it to be able to be read. So it's a very important part of the process. And for us, that readability and adhesion rate with our microtoner is really a big component of that, and something that we test on a regular basis. And then, as well, to your point with the red dye, there's a very unique security feature where if somebody tries to wash your check, it'll bleed red. And we're the only company in the world that does that. I mean, how many companies or people can say that they're the only ones that do something? We're the only ones that do that. So it's a really huge thing, especially from a bank from a check washing standpoint. The most common way that somebody's going to wash your check is through chemical alteration, which Troy MICR will stop. And we're the only ones that can say that. So it's huge. It's huge. It really is. And from a security standpoint, there's no better way to protect yourself, because if you don't, and if the checks get washed, unfortunately, you're going to get stuck with the bill. It's not like a debit card transaction where the bank's just going to refund you. It doesn't work that way. And unfortunately, check fraud and check washing, it's still very prevalent in the market today.
Sure, yeah. I mean, like to your point, I mean, us being able to say we're the only company that has that patent, that product that releases that red dye and will actively protect against check fraud. I mean, that's why we call it the world's most fraud-resistant toner. No
Yeah.
other company can say that. And this kind of brings me to another question that I didn't have written down, but I do want to ask you because. I think there could be a misconception about microtoner itself once you hear about
Mhm.
the banking requirement and how it's needed on checks for banking machines to read. And if you don't have it, you're going to, re- get rejections or incur penalties, whatever it's going to be. Is there a misconception that microtoner itself will protect against check washing because of that requirement?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, I think there's a lot of folks, which understandably, a lot of people would love if MICR wasn't still a requirement today. I mean,
Sure.
unfortunately, MICR is not inexpensive. Regardless of how you get it to your door, MICR is not inexpensive, but it's a necessary tool, and the banks require it. So I know a lot of people try to avoid that, but at the end of the day, I think what really matters is your customer's experience, right? Whether that's your internal or external customers, and having a payment not received because it gets flagged by the bank, it's just not worth it. And so you really need to have the MICR in place, um, whether you buy it direct or one of our MICRs from a reseller. You definitely want to make sure that you're using the correct MICR toner for sure. It'd be like saying, oh, you don't need a check. Well, you still need a check. It's still a check. You still need MICR. So yeah.
Sure. Yeah. But also in that same sense, like because it is a requirement, do certain potential clients or people that are just unaware, do they believe that MICR, because of that banking requirement, is enough to protect them from something like check washing?
It's a great question. I would say, probably initially, but I would say anybody that's sending a significant amount of checks or high dollar checks probably as well. It's not probably going to take long before you run into a check fraud situation. Unfortunately, it's just the world we live in. There's people that are desperate to find ways to get money out of people, and so if you're sending checks, odds are, unfortunately, it's just a numbers game. Somebody will probably try and wash your check. Um, and so, yeah, I think although you might have that misconception initially, once you have a case or two of it, you kind of learn pretty quick. And that's where we actually find a lot of our customers find Troy, is because they'll have a check washing case. And then next thing you know, they're looking on how to prevent it. And that's, how they connect with Troy. So, that's kind of a common thing we hear as well. But you need the security. You really
Yeah.
do.
It's kind
Yeah.
of you have to sort of find out the hard way sometimes, I guess.
Well, and unfortunately, when you think about it, if somebody's going to wash your check, they're not washing it for $20. They're
Right.
washing it for a lot more than that, and you get stuck with one of those, and it's going to sting a little bit. So, yeah, it's a hard lesson to learn, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you kind of actively educate people on that, or is it usually them finding out on their own, or you kind of um, bringing them to articles or bringing them to Troy's site? How do you educate people about this?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So I'm honored to be able to have a lot of that education piece that I get to be involved with. When we're at trade show, it's a lot of fun. We will show how a check's being washed and how it would look like with a Troy check, and people can see real time how the check would bleed, and those security pieces as well as like with our UV inks and that sort of thing. With every customer that I meet with, I try and always bring it up in conversation, even if it's just a hey, quick, just did you know this is what you're getting? Because I'm always kind of it's interesting how many people that are Troy customers don't even realize what they get with this solution. A lot of times they think, oh, this MICR is expensive, and they don't really understand. So I think it's important that we go through that with them. So there's a lot on the educational side. So and for me, it's kind of fun because we're fortunate to provide a product that has some kind of interesting wow factor. I mean, it's kind of a fun thing to share with people. So yeah, that's definitely a big part of the conversation for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's not, live demos are so important, and it's so fun to watch the red dye work.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
I started working here, I was like, wow, I just want to see that all the time. Um,
Right.
it kind of brings me to my next question too. This is my last question for you. You mentioned something about UV inks. So Troy has other offerings in the document security and check security that have are not microtoner related. So what other emerging technologies do you believe hold the most promise in advancing document and financial security?
Yeah, well, a great question. And that's kind of the nice thing with Troy. We're always looking to the market as far as what the customer needs are, and one emerging trend that we saw is in the ink space, whether that's UV inks and adding that additional level of security with things like vital records, or any type of really highly secure document. I know checks are kind of the bread and butter, but really, we deal with any secure document, any kind of certificate, anything that you need to have that extra layer of security. And so UV inks are typically a big part of that. And so that's where the UV inks come into play. There's also been a large need from the production standpoint where people need reprint capabilities. So there's been some development in the inkjet printing micro, as well as even color micro printing. So we actually, for 2024, it's going to be an exciting year for Troy. We have a lot of new solutions that will be released, more around the security piece that I'm really excited, from an employee standpoint, to work for a company that has so much R&D going on a regular basis. It's nice because you're not just stuck with the status quo. We're always looking to advance. So there's going to be a lot, especially in the ink space. I think that's going to be a really promising market as well. So, and that's something that, again, in the production micro space, there's a lot of need there, so yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, there's like you said, there's a lot of exciting things coming up and happening in 2024 for Troy. Like we talked about in our first installment with Eric, there's a lot of exciting marketing things happening, and now we're hearing from Bryce. There's a lot of exciting product things happening in document security, check security, printers, all kinds of stuff. And we're going to be doing more LinkedIn lives like this to find out more from different employees. Here working here at Troy. Bryce, if you have nothing else to add, I can let you go.
Well, I appreciate the time. I mean, it's always great to be able to kind of dig in and kind of further expand on who's Troy and what we do. So I always appreciate the opportunity. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. For anyone that wants to rewatch this again, this is going to be available on our YouTube channel, and this is also going to just be here on our LinkedIn feed. I appreciate everyone watching this newest Troy Group LinkedIn Live. Tune in next time. We'll have announcements every time we're going to go live. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Bryce.